Welcome. My name is Robert Farrell, Adobe Master with 26 years of hardcore, time-tested training experience in production techniques. In this course, I'm going to share with you how the software thinks, how a lot of Adobe software thinks. In fact, how the operating system works on Macintosh and Windows. Once you understand how it thinks, it's a very, very simple process to solve problems. This technique has worked very successfully for me for the past 26 years. More importantly, for the success and benefit of my students. This technique is unlike any other training system you've ever seen before. It's a very simple, step-by-step logical system. So let's get started. Now, in this particular case, I'm in Adobe Illustrator. Now, I'm going to share with you in the course of this video how basically to set up the procedures on how the program thinks, the theme of the program. Each software program has its own theme. Some are the same, some are different. So as an example, we're going to go to InDesign, After Effects, Premiere, Fireworks, Dreamweaver, and Photoshop, and I'm going to share with you how these software programs think, and through that type of understanding you will master the software. Now there's more to it than just understanding how it thinks, just like understanding that a surgeon understands how the scalpel works, but he still needs practical experience and technique and procedure and studying and studying and studying. So don't just think, after this simple video you'll master the course. But this is going to help you to be better at your software skills. So let's get started. Okay, Illustrator. What is Illustrator? Well, Illustrator is a vector-based program, which means it deals with vectors and paths. So as an example, I'm going to hit the M key, and I'm just going to select a simple path here. Now, for those of you that are new to Illustrator, I don't care. You're still going to learn something today, something you probably didn't even think about before. So what is the theme of Adobe Illustrator? Again, Illustrator makes vector artwork. Okay, vectors by default are known as objects, exact vocabulary. It's not a made-up word, it's an actual physical entity, O-B-J-E-C-T, object. Vectors are objects. As an example, when we go into Photoshop, Photoshop is pixels. Pixels are images. So I'm not just throwing out a word here. I'm not just arbitrarily calling it something ambiguous. I'm calling it something that the software understands. So here is the four-step process to understanding and mastering software. And if you're not sure about this, write this down. This will help you to master any software program. I don't care what it is. It could be After Effects. It could be Maya Studio. It could be Studio 3D Max. It could be a scientific program. If it's menu-driven, whether it's Mac or Windows, it thinks exactly the same way. And here's the four steps to mastering software. Write it down. Now, if you're watching this on Udemy, Udemy has a very wonderful way of taking notes. On the top right-hand corner, if you're watching this on Udemy, you can take notes to yourself. You can also write questions, etc., etc. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, I welcome you as well. I'm here to help everybody. So these very important words: create, select, create, design, edit, publish. Create, design, edit, publish. Now, what does that mean? Create, design, edit, publish. Well, let's break that down very simplistically. In order to create something, you can't affect it until it's been selected. So I have to create something first, then I do something to it. So create, design, I design what I've created, then I can make edits, changes to it. Now, a change is a whole can of worms. Edit falls under the category of anything. Deleting, moving, resizing, scaling, changing the color, that's a form of editing. So my procedure, my technique is to get you to think very generically, and through that generic thinking you can do and solve specific problems. So create, design, edit, publish. Okay, now, before the advent of the web, 1994-95, I used to teach create, design, edit, print, because basically all applications were print-based because the internet didn't exist. I've updated that with the word publish, because basically publishing encompasses publishing to a website, publishing to a tape, publishing to a CD, publishing to a printer. So in this program, if you use that exact phrase, create, design, edit, publish, in this program, what would be creating, designing, editing, publishing? The answer is objects, because the theme of this program is an object-based program. So here's an example. I'm going to select the object. Now, if the object's not selected, now in addition to create, design, edit, publish, the three important words is create, select, edit. Create, select, edit. The object has to be created, which it is. Once it's created, I can design and do something different to it. So I can design by creating, so create, design, edit, publish. Okay, so once it's created, since it's an object-based program, I can simply, anything to do with this object is onto the object menu. So why is that important? Well, this way, you're not being trained like some shocked monkey or some lab rat to basically remember every single menu. It's absolutely nonsense to remember the things that are under the menu. The only thing you have to recall and remember is what you're trying to accomplish. So as an example, if I had two objects here, I have this object, I have this object, I have this object. So let's say that I want to select all the objects at the same time. Well, anything about a selection, of course, is under the selection menu. Based on these choices, and that's all software comes down to, I can select all, I can select none, I can select the inverse, which means I can select everything but this. So right now, everything but that was selected. Now that it's selected, I can change its color. So as an example, I can make it brown. So if I wanted to select other colors of the same color based on these choices under the select menu based on these choices. Software just comes down to choices. I can select same fill color or same stroke color, etc., etc. I'm going to undo this for a second. Okay, so as far as create, select, edit, it falls under the auspice of create, design, edit, publish. So in this particular software, Adobe Illustrator, you're creating, selecting, editing objects, and creating, designing, and publishing objects. So anything about the object is under the object menu. So I can scale the object, rotate the object, I can lock the object, I can hide the object, I can change the object's path, I can change the object's pattern, etc., etc., etc. So it's that type of thinking. Of course, anything I wanted to import into this program would be a file. Therefore, anything about the file is under the File menu. So the theme of Adobe Illustrator is object because it's an object-based program. So in our next video, I'm going to share with you how After Effects, or actually in this video, just in 1 second, I'm going to share with you how After Effects works. So here we are in After Effects, another Adobe product, part of the Creative Suite CS6. So what does After Effects do? Well, After Effects is a motion graphics program, which basically takes graphics or video and applies a timeline to it to create a motion graphic. But by default, the theme of how this program thinks, two most important menus in this program is composition and layer. Composition and layer. So create, design, edit, publish. Create, design, edit, publish. So in this program, I would be creating compositions. Now, I'm not creating a new file, by the way. That's basically the project itself. But once you're inside of After Effects, you create compositions. The compositions are where things happen. Okay, so this is basically my stage if you want to look at it that way. So I'm just going to do something very basic here. I'm going to change the background color to yellow and hit OK. Make a change. Save a change. So here's how this works. Very important step. I'm just going to import a few graphics here. Sorry about that. I thought my mistake. I can't go back in time here, but I thought I paused that, so my apologies if I didn't. Okay, so I'm going to change this composition. Anything about the composition is under the composition menu. So based on these choices, I can change my composition. Command K, because it's not Command C, because Command C would be copy. And I'm just going to change this composition to white. And again, your composition is your stage. This is where your timeline, your frame rate, everything happens. Now, of course, I have a full course on this. I'm just getting to understand how each software thinks. And more importantly, understand my method of teaching to get you involved in the thinking process. So in this particular case, I'm just going to take some of these BMW cars that I have outlined. So I'm going to put this on the stage. So I'm going to Command / or I can drag it to the stage. Control / Windows. So create, design, edit, publish. In this particular case, we're creating, designing, editing compositions. But once a composition has been created, the most important menu here is layers. So I'm creating, designing, and affecting layers. Now, eventually, once this job is done, I'm going to publish. So right now, we're concerned about create, design, edit. So the two most important menus in this After Effects program is new composition. Once a composition is created, then basically creating layers. So as an example, every time I put an asset on my stage, that becomes a layer. Now, if you have Photoshop background, this is basically Photoshop with a timeline. Now that sounds like a strange thing to say because as recently as 2.5, 3 years ago, Photoshop actually now, of course, does have a timeline. But this is After Effects. So how the program thinks is this. So as an example, I have this in order to affect, I have to select. Now once you're inside the software, it still comes down to create, select, edit, create, select, edit, create, select, edit. In order to affect something, you have to select something. So this is now selected. So what is this? Well, basically this is my timeline, but more importantly, these are known as layers. Therefore, anything about the layer is on the layer menu. That's how the program thinks. Composition layer are the two themes of this particular software. So as an example, I can change the layer styles. I can give this a drop shadow. Okay, I can change the layer's effect. I can change the layer's quality. I can change the layer's masking capabilities. I can transform the layer, which means I can scale it or rotate it or adjust the opacity, etc., etc., etc. So again, my training system is absolutely 100% successful with my students because rather than say, okay, we go here and then we do this, then we do that, and rather for a student to say, well, I know you showed that to me, but hang on, that was under the, don't tell me it was under the, I don't know. If I teach you how the program thinks, and that's what my software program does, my learning training tutorials on udemy.com, that's what they do for you. They involve you in the thinking. Okay? Once you understand how the program thinks, based on, of course, what you select, then it's very simple to make choices and make decisions. So therefore, anything about the layer is under the layer menu. Now, if I want to animate this, I have an animation menu. If I wanted to affect this with, say, different types of effects like color corrections, etc., similar to the way Photoshop works, it'd be under the effect menu, but something has to be selected in order to be affected. So that's the theme of After Effects, and that's how After Effects thinks. It basically creates compositions. Once the composition is created, everything about that layer is under the layer menu. Now, of course, I can make new layers, like I can make new lighting layers and camera layers and shape layers, etc., etc. In fact, I can make a new Photoshop file layer, which we'll talk about when we get into Photoshop. Excuse me. So I appreciate you being here, and let's move on to InDesign. So here we are in Adobe InDesign. Now InDesign, of course, is a production tool for doing page layout. Pages could be for the web, pages could be for digital devices like iPad, iPod, iPhone, and of course printing devices or printing publications like magazines, brochures, business cards, etc., etc. So once again, similar to how Adobe Illustrator thinks, this is an object-based program, which means it's creating vectors. Vectors basically are objects. Therefore, anything about the object is on the object menu. Now, if I just go to the object menu just from the beginning here, you'll see that pretty much everything is grayed out. Why is that? Is there something wrong with the software? Do I need to restart it? Maybe I get a virus? Do I need to call Adobe Tech Support? No, you've broken the major rule of all software development, which is create, select, edit, create, select, edit, create, select, edit. Okay, so what have I created here? Well, right now, I've created nothing. So I'd have to go to one of my creation tools. So how this program thinks is I have selection tools and creation tools and transformation. So I'm simply going to create an object. So if I hit the letter F, now this basically kind of goes against the grain a little bit because this is a frame. So by default, InDesign is calling this a frame, but notice there's nothing up here that says the word frame, because my job is to teach you how the software thinks. So this is not a frame, this is an object. Therefore, anything about the object is under the object menu. Now, that's not the only way to adjust an object, but that's a good start to understand that anything about the object is under the object menu based on what you select. So I'm just going to change this color to this red color as an example. Right now it's not selected. Now pay close attention to this next step, because this will get you into trouble if you don't comprehend how the software thinks. My objective is to teach you how the software thinks. So I want to deselect this. I'm going to click right here, and I'm going to get this pesky little dialog box, which has probably happened to you. Now the reason that this has happened is because I'm in the frame tool. What does the frame tool do? It only has one purpose in its life. It creates frames. It doesn't select frames. It doesn't delete frames. It doesn't edit frames. It creates frames. This is an object creation tool. This pen tool creates objects. The pencil tool creates objects. The frame tool creates objects. Anything about the object is under the object menu. So a little shortcut, and if you take my full course, of course I go into great detail on this. If I simply hold down the command key in any Adobe product, I can turn a selection tool into any tool rather, into a selection tool by holding down the command key. So I don't have to jump up here every 10 seconds. I'm going to hold down the command key and I'm just going to move it to here or move it to there, etc., etc. So again, how this program thinks, it's an object-based program. Therefore, anything about the object is on the object menu. So let me test your skill. Let me test your intuition here, your logic, your deductive reasoning. This is a picture box frame by default. How do I know that? Because it has an X running through it. I want to basically convert this to a text box. Now we can do this two ways. I'm going to show you again how the software thinks. So anything about the object, I just taught you, Robert said, anything about the objects is under the object menu. So based on these choices, I'm going to change this to a text box. Well, there's nothing in here that says change to text box. But based on these choices, and again, you have to get in the habit of understanding how the software thinks. Based on these choices, what am I actually generically doing? Remember I said in a different, previously to this inDesign video, I said if you want to think generically, you can then get specific with that generic thinking. So based on these choices, I'm actually changing its content. Because right now the content is a graphic picture box. We want to change it to a text box and vice versa. So if this in fact was a text box based on what I've selected, by holding down the command key, Macintosh, control key for Windows, I can simply go to the object menu, object, and change its content. So again, this is the theme of the program. Now you'll notice you have measurements up here, the width, the height, but that's based on what you select. Nothing's selected, nothing's affected. Rule number one, in order to affect, we must select. If you want to affect that Big Mac, you have to select that Big Mac. So I select by holding down the command key. Because I'm a lazy guy, I'm in the frame tool. Perhaps I want to make more frames. More frames. But I don't want to have to go up to the selection tool every 10 seconds. I could simply hold down the command key and keep it held down as long as you're selecting something. And again, this technique works in Fireworks. It works in Flash. It works in Illustrator. It works in After Effects. It works in pretty much every Adobe program with the exception of Dreamweaver, because Dreamweaver per se doesn't really have a selection tool. That's not how it thinks. So let's move on to another one of my favorite programs, Adobe Premiere. Now here we are in Adobe Premiere. Now some people feel that this program is as intuitive as the other programs. Well, that's not necessarily true, because my job is to teach you how the software thinks. So of course this is a video editing program. Now the theme of this particular program is sequences. Sequence is basically the timeline. So as an example, I have something called sequence 1. So the assets get put on the sequence. And the assets, again, generic word here. I'm not talking about specific things. If you keep things generic, you can master the program by thinking specifically later. So in this particular case, I have an asset called movie. Now this is a movie file. I also have an AVI file rather. So my objective is to basically put this on the sequence. So I can do that very simply by dragging it to my sequence, or I can hit the comma in Windows or Mac and put it onto my sequence. Therefore, anything about that sequence, because once it appears in my timeline, the timeline is known as a sequence. I can actually have multiple sequences. Therefore, anything about the sequence is under the sequence layer. So sequence settings, sequence work areas, sequence zoom in, sequence zoom out, etc., etc., etc. Okay, now, once the sequence has been created, the second most important menu in this create, design, edit, publish, this theme of create, select, edit, I'd be creating, selecting, editing sequences. More specifically, once I have the sequence created, I then have what's called a clip. So anything that goes in here is a clip. Again, generic word. Now that clip can be an audio clip, a photograph JPEG clip, it could be a text clip, it could be a movie clip. So anything about the clip is under the clip menu. So based on these choices, what do you want to do to the clip? Maybe you want to hold the clip, modify the clip, maybe you want to make a subclip, maybe you want to rename the clip, etc., etc. Now, since this is an editing tool, I do have editing tools, but I'd be basically editing the clip. So again, vocabulary here. Once it's inside the sequence, sequence, clip. These are the two most important things of the program. Now, just like After Effects, this is a project window, so I can make myself a new project, or I could make myself a new sequence. Now, similar to how how After Effects and Premiere think, is they both call it project, but Premiere calls their timeline a sequence, where After Effects calls their timeline a composition. So you can have you can't put a sequence inside of a sequence, but you can have multiple. So actually, let me take that back. You can actually put a sequence inside of another sequence, that's true. But in After Effects, you can have a composition inside of a composition, or a composition next to a composition, etc., etc. So based on what you select, so if I have nothing selected, create, select, edit, create, select, edit. If I break the rules and go to the clip menu, well, I can do nothing to the clip. And this is the bane of most students' frustration, because they forgot the most important rule of life. In order to affect, you have to select. Once it's selected, what is that? So my job is to teach you what that is based on these choices, and then based on those choices, what you want to do. Now, just like any other software program, there's many different ways to do things, but again, that's how Premiere thinks. And of course, when I'm ready to publish, it's under the file. I'm publishing a file. As an example, in InDesign and Illustrator, I'd be printing the file. In this particular case, I'm publishing the file, more importantly, exporting the file to media or a device or YouTube or whatever I'm going to. So again, that's how the program thinks. Now, this is just a little like icing on the cake of how my courses work and how I involve you in the thinking. So this separates what I do from any other instructor out there. I don't care who it is, where they're from, what kind of background. I can assure you they don't teach my method for very simple reasons. They haven't figured it out yet that it's really this simple. Okay, software is not confusing. The geniuses, here's the genius. The geniuses are the guys and gals who wrote the software program. They're basically almost pleading with you to say, hey guys, we made this really simple. But see, a lot of people don't get that. They think this is confusing. It can be confusing unless you're taught how the software thinks. So menu-based programs are very, very simple, but you have to understand how it thinks and what it expects from you. Okay, so let's move on to another one of my favorite programs, Photoshop. Now here we are in one of the earlier programs I taught myself. Originally it was Illustrator, then it was PageMaker, then Photoshop, and then actually a couple years later after that, sure, it was After Effects 2, 92. So this is something you're probably not aware of. I just copied something to my clipboard. Now, Photoshop and Fireworks actually do the same thing here. As far as this next technique, I'm going to make a new document called Create, Design, Edit, Publish. And what's happening right now is whatever size that I copied to my clipboard, it's going to make this file the same exact size. So for those of you out there that were basically taking files, and I'm just going to go ahead and save that inside my Documents folder right there and save. So for those of you out there who didn't realize that they were basically figuring out the size of their document, they're making a new document, then copying and pasting. Anytime you copy something to the clipboard in either Photoshop or Fireworks, it will actually make that size whatever size you copied. Okay, now let's understand how Photoshop works. Now the rules of create, select, edit still apply. Create, select, edit. But what would you be create, select, editing in this program? Well, this is a pixel-based program. Pixel-based. Let's see, where do I find pixels? Maybe I should go to Help, type in the word pixels, and under the View menu, pixels. Maybe I need to restart my computer. Do I get a virus? I don't see that it says pixels. Robert, are you sure about that? Pixel-based, huh? So again, just like Illustrator is vector-based, vectors are known as objects. Objects are scalable vectors. Photoshop deals with pixels, also known as rasterization, not to be confused with Rastafari. See, you learned something today. Okay. So pixels by default generically are known as images. So this is an image manipulation program or an image editing program, which those two words basically mean the same thing. So based on those choices, anything about the image is under the image menu. Now, Photoshop works slightly different than other programs because in general, in order to affect something, you do have to have something selected. But in this particular case, I technically don't have anything selected, but I can still go to my image menu. So that makes this program a little bit unique. In fact, unlike Illustrator or InDesign or After Effects, I have to have something physically selected. So the way that Photoshop thinks is by selecting nothing, I get everything. Okay, so that's kind of how it thinks. That's kind of its theme. But anything about the image is under the image menu. So image adjust the image size, image canvas, image rotate. So again, if you're trying to stumble through the software because you're so bogged down with notes and confusing stuff and you read books, let me help you to think the way the software thinks. So in this particular case, I have selection tools. I have selection tools and I have creation tools. So what would I be creating here? Well, in this particular case, I would be selecting, editing images. But as recently as CS3, going back to 1994, 95, you can also create vectors technically in here as well with the pen tool. Now, I don't want to confuse you with that, but I do want to share with you the two most important menus. The two most important menus in Photoshop are image and select. Image and select. You're selecting the image. In order to affect the image, you need to select the image. So as an example, if I go to color range, I can affect this image. And again, Photoshop is a little unique. By selecting nothing, you get everything, if you want to look at it that way. Okay, so anything about the image is under the image menu, but the two most important menus are image and select. I'm selecting the image. Now, in addition to that, of course, just like After Effects, there's an entire filter menu for doing things like distorting and blur, etc., etc., etc. Now, if you want to isolate something separately, then I would basically go to one of my selection tools. Okay, so I could basically hit the letter M, and that's going to select my marquee selection tool. Now I can add to the selection. Now this technique pretty much works on every software program, plus this technique works on your desktop, whether it's Windows or Mac. The Shift key will always enable you to add to something. Now since I'm a selection tool, I'm adding to my selection. I'm adding to my selection. I'm adding to my selection. Holding down the Command key the Option key Macintosh, the Alt key Windows, I can take away from my selection. I could take away from my selection. I could take away from my selection. So the Shift key adds, the Option key or Alt key, all alternative choices, Option for choices, adds or takes away. Now if I hold down both Option and Shift, I can actually intersect that selection. So Option and Shift, Macintosh, Alt Shift Windows. Now here's what I'd like to be able to do. Okay, now of course I'm going to totally screw up this image by doing that, but here's what I want to share with you, some very cool production techniques that you're probably not aware of. You're probably not aware of. Okay, here's my fill, and here's my foreground color, background color. Now if I was an illustrator, this would be fill and stroke. This is foreground, background. I can exchange that simply by hitting the X key. So here's what I'd like to do. I'm just going to pick a color here. I'm going to pick this, this bright pinkish color. So what I want to do is simply fill this selection in with the foreground color. Now, of course, I can go to my paint bucket tool. I can drive myself insane with a lot of other things, but here's a simple approach. There's 3 ways to delete to the foreground or background, and I'm going to share with you, and this is something you probably don't know. I have friends and students who are working in Photoshop for 15, 20 years, and they don't know what I'm about to share with you. So if I simply hit the delete key right now, of course, that's going to delete to the background color, which in this particular case is white. Now, by default, the reason that's doing that is because this background layer is locked. If this background layer was unlocked, as an example, double click, and I'm just going to call it background. Now, as long as it's not called layer 1, it's basically an unlocked background. Now, because it's unlocked, watch what happens when I hit the delete key. I get the transparent background. So now it's going to delete the transparency if I'm inside of this layer, of course. In order to affect, you have to select, create, select, edit. Excuse me. So in order to affect the layer, I have to select the layer. So now if I hit the delete key, it's going to delete to white background. Okay, so it's going to delete to this. Now, if I hide this layer for a second and I select this background because it's unlocked, because it's not locked if I hit the delete key, it's going to delete to transparency. So that's the difference. By default, the background is locked. So I'm just going to undo this a few times. Now, in Photoshop, you have undo, redo. It's if you just hit Command Z, all that's going to do is toggle between undo, redo, undo, redo. What you have to know about Photoshop is Command Option Z or Control Alt Z goes backwards. Command Option Z, Command Shift Z goes forward. Okay, so I'm going to Command Shift Z to go forward to where we left off. So let's get back to this again. So here's what I'd like to do. I want to fill this with this foreground color. Now again, if I simply hit the delete key, it's going to fill it with the background color. So if I give myself more choices, more options, and again, once you get into the software, there's little nuances. The Option key in Macintosh, or the Alt key for Windows, basically works the same way. It gives you more choices, more options, more alternatives. So I want to Option delete. So Option delete is foreground color. How cool is that? Many of you probably didn't know that. Command Z, undo that. Okay, so I have delete and I have Option delete. So Option delete is foreground color. Now, very important step here. I'm going to take this background layer, I'm going to select it, and I'm just going to delete that. So that deleted the transparency. So I just want to share with you that I'm deleting the transparency. Now, let's say that I want to, if I hit the delete key, that's going to delete the transparency. However, if I want to get the background color and to make this a little less confusing, I'm going to hit the X key. X is going to exchange. So with the background selected, in order to affect it, you need to select it. I'm going to make the background say blue. So right now, my background, hit blue and OK. So right now, background is my background color. So in Photoshop, the way it thinks is this the color you paint with. This is the color I erase to or delete to. So again, because I have a unlocked background, by default, hitting the delete key is going to give me the transparent layer. That's not what I want to have happen. However, if I hit Command delete will do the background color. So right now, there's 3 ways to use a simple shortcut key, and I go to every single shortcut key. I'm a master of everything Adobe. If there's a shortcut key, if there's a quicker, faster, better, smoother technique and procedure, I'm the guy that knows it. So again, delete key is simply deleting to the background. Command delete deletes to the background physical chip, regardless if you have a locked or unlocked layer. Option delete does foreground color. Now I want to add one more to that. The next step to this is, let's say that I want to fill this in with a percentage or a blend mode of either the background or the foreground color. Well, how would I do that? Well, that would simply be Shift delete. Shift delete is the same as going to the edit menu and going to fill, edit, fill. So we're going to fill this based on these choices. We're going to fill this with either foreground, background color, or based on these choices, I can pick any color. So we're going to fill this with foreground color at 55% opacity. So that's something you could not have done by simply hitting Option delete. Okay. So now I'm going to move the selection. So I'm not moving the image, I'm moving the selection. Why? Because I'm in a selection tool. Now, similar to the other shortcuts I showed you in other programs, if I hold down the Command key, that turns it into a physical image selection tool. Therefore, it would cut the object. Okay, so that's totally different. So if I hold down the Command key, in this particular case, it cuts the object. And a little shortcut, if I hold down the Command key plus the Option key, option for choices, alternative choices for Windows, I'm making a copy. So again, hopefully this has helped you to think how Photoshop thinks and what it expects from you, and think about the images under the image menu, the 2 most important menus are image and select. Of course, sign up for my full course on udemy.com. In fact, what I really encourage you to do if you're serious about making money with this is to sign up for my all access pass. You're saying, aha, I knew there was a catch. These guys tell me all this great stuff and now he wants me to sign up for his all access pass. Wow, how much is that? Well, you don't worry about that. I will give you a good deal on that. Just contact me through udemy.com. But let's dream a little bit. Let's just dream a little bit and say that my All Access Pass, which gives you all my 25, 26 current courses plus all my future courses for life, which means that when Adobe upgrades to CS 10, 11, 12, 6, 7, 8, 9 years from now, you're covered. You'll never have to pay for another Adobe software training video from me ever again. Now let's dream a little bit and say that that course was, I don't know, $2,000. $2,000? What are you, insane? Well, let me tell you something. I would like to think that you're going to make 10, 20, 100, 300, 500 times that amount back in the next 3 to 5 years if you know how to do this the correct way. And again, my course, my All Access Pass is not $2,000. But I'm just sharing with you that if it was, it'd still be worth every penny, because that's certainly cheaper than learning this at a college or design school or university, because quite frankly, I get those students that come to my courses here in New York City, and their parents spend a lot of money for 4 years or 6 years or even graduate school, and they did not know the software. Now, to their credit, they're great designers, but if you don't know the software, companies are not going to hire you. So I share with you how to think better, quicker, faster, etc., etc. So in the next software, I'm going to go into Dreamweaver and share with you how Dreamweaver thinks, and I'll talk to you in just a second. So as promised, here we are in Adobe Dreamweaver, and which used to be, of course, Macromedia Dreamweaver. Why did I close that file? I have no idea. Wasn't paying attention. Just wanted to make my screen bigger. So create, design, edit, publish. You're creating, designing, editing HTML files. Now, whether or not it's a PHP file, it's still based on the HTML markup, hypertext markup language. So in this particular program, which is an HTML file, all Dreamweaver does is this. For those of you that think Dreamweaver is a toy, or why am I going to use it? I'm going to write my code from scratch. Why would you want to do that? Why would you ever want to sit there and write code from scratch? That's equivalent to saying, I want to create and write my own mathematical formula for PostScript. Well, that's what Adobe Illustrator does. You click this menu, you click this tool, and it's done. Dreamweaver gets a very bad rap. Dreamweaver does some amazing things. I built 6-figure websites with Dreamweaver. And if you sign up for my courses, you will learn how to do things the correct way, my way, and make money. Now, in addition to my courses, I also share with you techniques on how to make money, how to position your courses, how to position your projects, your website development, your brochures, your package design, whatever the software is, I'm here to help you. So to save some time here, I have this little extension here to put some text, and I'm just going to put, say, 2 paragraphs of corporate mumbo jumbo. Now, the thing I really want to caution you about, and again, if you're watching this on Udemy, I really want you to just write this down. Do not ever put more than 2 paragraphs of corporate mumbo jumbo, because no website should really ever have more than 2 paragraphs of corporate mumbo jumbo, and you want to write that down. Okay, so in this particular program, Dreamweaver, all Dreamweaver does is write code. That's what it does. That's all it does. So whatever I click and point and pull down, etc., all it's doing continually. Now, what makes Dreamweaver separate from Illustrator and Photoshop and InDesign, those programs create their own proprietary documents that can be printed or published to the web or converted. But all Dreamweaver does is what? It just simply makes an HTML file that the browsers then render and basically publish to the web. So Dreamweaver is not a self-contained program. Dreamweaver is just the tool for creating the code. And what does the code mean? So your objective with Dreamweaver is simply to modify. Well, modifying what? Modifying page properties, modifying CSS styles, modifying media queries. It's all under the modified menu. Now, if I want to insert, the 2 most important menus here are modify and insert. Modify, insert. So I can insert images, I can insert Swift files, I can insert forms, I can insert hyperlinks under the insert menu. Now, I break it down even simpler in my course because I actually stay away from these menus because we do it with shortcuts and the property palette. But as an example, anything about CSS is under the CSS styles. So under modify CSS, if that's not up, you want to bring it up. Now you can do this one of 2 ways, under the window menu CSS or modify. Okay, so in this particular case, you're doing markup for the content. Now again, what does that mean? Well, content could be in a web program, in an HTML arena, could be JPEG, or generically known as an image. So in HTML, you have a couple different types of files. You have text, you have images, you have Swift files, QuickTime movies, or AIF sound files. So based on what you select, the browser needs to know how that particular content, in this particular case text, has been marked up. So I'm just going to hit the return key. So as an example, by default, when I inserted this content under the insert menu, this is a free tool that I talk about in my full course, by the way. Now you can also get some really cool free samples here on more in depth as to what I do by going to udemy.com, and I'll have a link for that on the bottom of this video. Now, of course, if you're watching this on udemy.com, you don't have to do that. So it's udemy.com/think-learn-earn, and I have a bunch of really cool free things that help you to entice you to sign up for my courses. So I'm going to command 1. So I just marked up that content with a tag. I tagged the content. More specifically, I tagged the text. So now that the text has been tagged, I can format it with a CSS style known as CSS style sheet, which is basically the rules of how the program works, the rules of how the HTML works. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail. I'm going to share with you a very straightforward, simple example. So far, we created this content in this page with no hand coding. We're going to do some very, very sophisticated things without hand coding. So I'm going to select the tag. Rule number 1, create, select, edit, create, select, edit, create, select, edit. Once it's created, it has to be selected. In order to affect it, I have to select it. Once it's selected, I'm going to go over here to my CSS palette, and it says New CSS Rule. So based on these choices, we're simply going to select the tag your it, and based on these choices, we're going to do a couple of things here. We're going to change the font, we're going to change the size, and we're going to change the case, and we're going to change the color. So if I hit the apply option, that's exactly what I told it to do. But the most important thing to consider is that you have to tag your content. That's how the software thinks. Once it's tagged, you have to stylize it. Now, do you have to have a rule for every single tag? No, you don't. Now, if you're not sure about this, I have a great tutorial on getting started with Dreamweaver. In fact, I'll put a little discount link on the bottom of this video that if you're not part of the Getting Started video series, I highly suggest you get that, and I'll put a little discount link at the bottom of this video on YouTube and in the information on Udemy that you can get that at a reduced rate. As a thank you for watching. It's one of my most popular courses, and all my courses on Udemy, by the way, are totally updatable, which means month after month, month after month, I add to my courses. In addition to building new courses every month, I also add to my existing courses for the life of that software program. Of course, the new version comes out. So again, my name is Robert Farrell. Thank you very much for being here, and I hope this kind of decluttered and made it much more simple to understand how Adobe software thinks. So in closing, here's what I'm going to do. If you sign up for any of my courses, and I even mean my free courses, if you don't want to spend money right now, I respect that, I understand that. But if you go to my homepage right now, I have a special 63% offer on my All Access course. Okay, so as an example, if I click that, that's going to give you this course right now for $649. Now that sounds like a lot of money. Okay, it can be, but as an example, as you know, there's plenty of other training videos out there, and in general, most of them average about 20 bucks, 25 bucks a month. So let's take that 20 bucks a month. So nothing up my sleeve, let's just do some basic simple math and share with you. Now, of course, we take credit cards, so that's all important. And the other thing I want to mention to you too, if you sign up for any of my courses, and I don't care if it's a course for $99 or even my All Access Production Bundle, which of course means that you get lifetime access forever. So as long as I'm alive and breathing, and hopefully that's for the next 20, 30 years, you will get free updates. So when Adobe upgrades to CS10 or 12, you get free updates, you never have to pay again. Okay, so as an example, as you know, there are other courses out there, but they charge per month. So as an example, lynda.com, you want all access and download their files, that's $375 a year. $375 a year, in 5 years, you spent $1,800. Okay, but you're still not as great as lynda.com, and all due respect to what she does and what they don't make it as simple as I do. Okay, she actually taught some courses at my school back in 1997, and I think she's a great person. I think she does a great business. I admire her business. Okay, but their instructors kind of confuse you with a lot of things. They don't break it down. In fact, one of my biggest pet peeves is they're constantly working on untitled documents. That's just a bad idea. So as an example, let's take that $649. In fact, let's forget lynda.com's $375 deal. Let's say that you sign up for her $20 a month. Actually, it's $25, but let's say you get a discount. So that times 12, and that's every single month. That's $240. Okay, within 3 years, you spend $720. Okay, but the advantage of my program right now, I think I have either 24 or 25 current courses and growing. So if you take that $649 and divide that by 25, that's $25 a course. But here's the deal: you never have to pay again. There's no additional subscription. Plus, I add to my courses. Plus, I add new courses. Plus, the most important thing is you've invested in me, which means I have your back. I'm here to help you every step of the way. This is my all-access pass at a substantial discount. Okay, so again, now for those of you that think $649 is a lot of money, and I respect that, I understand that, what I'll also enable you to do, if you contact me, tell me the courses. I will put together a custom bundle just for you. So simply tell me the courses that you want to take, copy and paste the URL, send me a message, and I will do what I can to give you the best deal possible and work with your budget. I'm here to help everyone. I respect the fact that some of you work in or live in parts of the world where $50 is a lot of money. I understand that, and I'm still here to help you. That's why I do offer a lot of free courses on udemy.com. Now, in reference to that, if you are going to take a course and a free course, and to share the love, send the link to somebody else that could benefit from my free courses. Also, write a comment or two about my courses, which is very important. The other thing I want to share with you too is read my ratings, my reviews rather. My students love my courses. I'm very responsive to my questions, by the way. As busy as I am, I always have time to respond. In general, I get back to students usually within 10 minutes. Because I'm constantly multitasking. I got my iPhone here, I'm in front of a computer, etc., etc. So if somebody has a question, I'm here to help you every single step of the way. You're not on your own. So my All Access Pass is my greatest deal, but I do have, of course, other courses. So what I was talking about is my getting started here. So right now, I'm going to put a link at the bottom of this video, and I'll enable you to sign up for this course fairly inexpensively. This course has tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of topics. In fact, you'll notice that some of the courses right now, some of the videos on here I'm making available right now for free. No catch, you don't have to sign up. The advantage of using Udemy is you can take notes, you can ask questions every step of the way. Anyway, this whole video is getting rather long, so I appreciate you being here. My name is Robert Farrell. I'm here to help you every step of the way. And I have a very selfish attitude. My selfish attitude is this: I want to make you the best user of the software as possible, and that comes back to me in rewards. So I'm going to share with you a quick little story. About 5-6 years ago, we had Bloomberg News here in New York City. I was after them for years. Now, this is when Flash was the application. This is probably going back about maybe 6 years ago. And I was constantly, contacting them about teaching them Flash, because I teach the Associated Press. I teach basically every publication here in the city. But for some reason, I couldn't get Bloomberg News to sign up for my courses. So finally, about it had to be 7 years ago, I had a girl that came to me from Bloomberg News as an intern. She paid $600-700 for my one-on-one courses. She learned more about Flash in that 6 courses than most of their so-called guru geeks knew at the company. So she went back and she was showing them all these great techniques that she was learning from me. And again, she was an intern. No disrespect and no offense to that. So because of that, they finally got off their butts over at Bloomberg, contacted me and said, please come train us. Now, of course, because of the hell that they put me through for all those years, I charged them the a-hole tax, if you know my drift. I charged them extra, absolutely, because you could have got it from me years ago. So after all this, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten some great training gigs, you know, for 6 figures sometimes, or traveling to different countries, or traveling to different parts of the country, or different parts of the world for that matter, because I taught 1 or 2 students that were such a rock star. They went back to their company and they like blew them out of the water, and they went, where did you learn that? Well, some guy named Robert over on West 57th Street. Well, now you have the advantage of this. You don't have to live in New York City to take advantage of my master techniques. All you have to do is sign up for a course on udemy.com. And here's my closing thought. If you sign up for any of my courses and you think, yeah, I like you, Robert, I get it, but you know what? I didn't like the course. It's just not for me. Udemy will give you your money back 100% with no questions asked. Now, I don't want to advertise that too much because I don't want people taking advantage. There are some, unscrupulous people in the world who will basically just say they got stuff, they made money from my course, they basically built websites, they built package design, they did this great video that got paid $60,000 and they still want their money back. So I just want to share with you, being totally upfront and transparent, that you can, any course that you take on Udemy for whatever reason, no questions asked, at the end of 30 days, if you're not happy, you get your money back. So my name is Robert Farrell. Thank you very, very much for being here. And again, for those of you taking my free courses, I respect you. I appreciate you being here. But if you're really serious about learning the program the right way, you definitely need my full in-depth course. And if you can afford it, of course, my all-access pass, because that's the most important thing. Talk to you soon. My name is Robert Farrell. Thank you very much for being here. Carpe Diem 2013 and Create, Design, Edit, Publish, based on Create, Select, Edit, Create, Select, Edit. Have a good day. Carpe Diem.